Good afternoon and welcome back to another episode of The Longing, where once again we'll be continuing to read Moby Dick, because we're getting closer and closer to the halfway mark. So here we go. Nor with the immemorial superstition of their race, and in accordance with the preternaturalness, as it seemed, which in many things invested the Pequod, were them wanting some of the seamen who swore that whenever and wherever descried, at however remote times or in however far apart latitudes and longitudes, that unerrable spout was cast by one self-same whale, and that whale Moby Dick. For a time there reigned, too, a sense of peculiar dread at this flitting apparition, as if it were treacherously beckoning us on, in order that the monster might turn round upon us, and rend us at last in the remotest and most savage seas. These temporary apprehensions, so vague but so awful, derived a wondrous potency from the contrasting serenity of the weather, in which, beneath all its blue blandness, some thought there lurked a devilish charm. As for days and days we voyaged along, through seas so wearily, lonesomely mild, that all space, in repugnance to our vengeful errand, seemed vacating itself of life before our urn-like prow. But at last, when turning to the eastward, the Cape winds began howling around us, and we rose and fell upon the long troubled seas that are there, when the ivory-tusked Pequod sharply bowed to the blast, and gored the dark waves in her madness, till, like showers of silver chips, the foam flakes flew over her bulwarks. Then all this desolate vacuity of life went away, but gave place to sights more dismal than before. Close to our bows, strange forms in the water darted hither and thither before us, while thick in our rear flew the inscrutable sea ravens, and every morning, perched on our stays, rows of these birds were seen, and spite of our hootings, for a long time obstinately clung to the hemp, as though they deemed our ship some drifting, uninhabited craft, a thing appointed to desolation, and therefore fit roosting place for their homeless selves. And heaved, still unrestingly heaved the black sea, as if its vast tides were a conscience, and the great mundane soul were in anguish and remorse for the long sin and suffering it had bred. Cape of Good Hope, do they call ye? Rather, Cape Tormentoso, as called of yore. For long allured by the perfidious silences that before had attended us, we found ourselves launched into this tormented sea, where guilty beings transformed into those fowls and these fish seemed condemned to swim on everlastingly without any haven in store, or beat the black air without any horizon. But calm, snow-white, and unvarying, still directing its fountain of feathers to the sky, still beckoning us on from before, the solitary jet would at times be descried. During all this blackness of the elements, Ahab, though assuming for the time the almost continual command of the drenched and dangerous deck, manifested the gloomiest reserve, and more seldom than ever addressed his mates. In tempestuous times like these, after everything above and aloft has been secured, nothing more can be done but passively to await the issue of the gale. Then captain and crew become practical fatalists. So, with his ivory leg inserted into its accustomed hole, and with one hand firmly grasping a shroud, Ahab for hours and hours would stand gazing dead to windward, while an occasional squall of sleet or snow would all but congeal his very eyelashes together. Meantime the crew, driven from the forward part of the ship by the perilous seas that burstingly broke over its bows, stood in a line along the bulwarks in the waist, and the better to guard And the better to guard against the leaping waves, each man had slipped himself into a sort of bowline secured to the rail, in which he swung as in a loosened belt. Few or no words were spoken, and the silent ship, as if manned by painted sailors in wax, day after day tore on through all the swift madness and gladness of the demoniac waves. By night the same muteness of humanity before the shrieks of the ocean prevailed. Still in silence the men swung in the bowlines. Still wordless Ahab stood up to the blast. Even when wearied nature seemed demanding repose, he would not seek that repose in his hammock. Never could Starbuck forget the old man's aspect when one night, going down into the cabin to mark how the barometer stood, he saw him with closed eyes sitting straight in his floor-screwed chair. The rain and half-melted sleet of the storm, from which he had some time before emerged, still slowly dripping from the unremoved hat and coat. On the table beside him lay unrolled one of those charts of tides and currents which have previously been spoken of. His lantern swung from his tightly clenched hand, though the body was erect. The head was thrown back so that the closed eyes were pointed towards the needle of the telltale that swung from the beam in the ceiling. The cabin compass is called the telltale, because without going to the compass at the helm, the captain, while below, can inform himself of the course of the ship. Terrible old man, thought Starbuck with a shudder, sleeping in this gale. Still thou steadfastly eyest thy purpose. I think with that we're not going to move on to the next chapter just because I don't know how long it is and I was expecting this one to take a little bit longer than that. So what we'll do instead is we will make more drawings. So I believe the eye is the last one we did in blue. So we need to do the moon, and we've already done the louse. And then we start moving on to the multicoloured drawings after that. But for now we draw the moon. In its unhappy form. I'm honestly not sure where we're going to fit all of this. All of these drawings, because we are going to draw all of the drawings we can as time goes on. Nope. Oh no. Now I've done it. Well, there's the blue moon. So we can start drawing this other stuff now. What we're going to have to probably do is spend one episode transferring as many of these drawings down to the lower reaches, just so that we actually have room for the new ones. That's mostly what it's going to be for. Yeah. We are going to have to do that at some point, but we're going to need to take at least a couple of full episodes, I would imagine, in order to do that. I suppose we can quickly draw this next one that requires multiple colours. Well, black and white at least. Multiple shades. I honestly don't know where we're going to put this one. I don't think I'll be able to let go of it So maybe next episode we do move these drawings around to make space. That's what we might have to do. Next episode, just spend some time spend some time moving them around. It's taking a little bit longer to draw it than expected. But then I suppose it is using two colours. This is taking a lot longer than I thought. We'll have to bear that in mind now that we're doing the double colours. Ah, there we go. Oh, and it's frozen again. Well, that's fitting. So we'll have to leave it there because I need to sort this out because it's frozen again, which it does do sometimes, it seems. But yes, thank you very much for joining me. I hope you all have a wonderful morning, evening, afternoon or night. We will be back tomorrow with more of The Longing, where we'll be moving these pictures around. So thank you very much, and we'll see you tomorrow. Goodbye.